Some stories really stick with you, not because they're comforting, but because they're deeply unsettling. Today, we're going to dive into one of the absolute darkest tales from the Brothers Grimm, the Juniper Tree. And then we're going to see how a modern novelist took its brutal, bloody bones and built something completely new and fascinating from it. Let's get into it. This whole twisted story really kicks off with a song, a haunting, totally impossible verse sung by a mysterious little bird. This rhyme right here is the key to everything, a story of murder, of magic, and a really, really grim kind of justice. It's the kind of line that just makes you stop and ask, how in the world did we get here? Well, to understand this central crime of the story, we actually have to go all the way back to the beginning, to a really strange and poetic wish that sets this whole gruesome tale in motion. So this is the desperate wish of a very devout wife. She's standing under a juniper tree in the middle of winter, and while she's peeling an apple, she cuts her finger. A single drop of blood falls onto the pure white snow. And in that moment, seeing that stark contrast of beauty and pain, she makes this powerful and, ultimately fatal wish. What follows is this almost mystical pregnancy, where the months are marked by the changing seasons and by the juniper tree itself. And you know what? She gets her wish. A beautiful baby boy, as red as blood and as white as snow. But the joy is so powerful, so overwhelming, it literally kills her. Her final request was to be buried right there, beneath the juniper tree, tying her spirit to that spot forever. So the father, he eventually remarries. And this, right here, is where the story takes its famously dark turn. With the new wife comes a new daughter, and a deep, festering jealousy toward the little boy. In classic fairy tale fashion, the stepmother is just completely consumed by this wicked idea. The book says the evil one filled her mind. She doesn't see her stepson as a child. She sees him as an obstacle, someone standing in the way of her own daughter's inheritance. And so she starts to abuse him, pushing him around, until the poor kid is living in constant fear. The trap is set with this just horrifying act of fake kindness. She calls the boy over, looks at him fiercely, and offers him an apple from a huge, heavy chest. The moment is just dripping with menace. You know something awful is about to happen. She convinces him to lean right into the chest to pick out his own apple. And the boy, being innocent and totally unsuspecting, he leans over this big collection of beautiful red apples and reaches right in. And there it is, just like that. It's one of the most shocking, brutal moments in the entire Grimm collection. It's not a metaphor. It's a swift, horrific murder that leaves the boy's head lying right there among the apples he was promised. A real gut punch. If you can believe it, the cover-up is somehow even more monstrous. The stepmother props up the boy's body, tricks her own daughter Marlene into thinking that she's the one who knocked his head off. And to hide this accident, she comes up with a gruesome plan. They're gonna chop up the boy and cook him into a stew. And this might be the most horrifying part of the entire story. The unsuspecting father comes home, asks where his son is, and she serves him the stew. He just devours it, saying how delicious it is, how it feels like it's all his. He has absolutely no idea he's cannibalizing his own child. It's a truly, truly chilling scene. Okay, so you have to ask yourself, how could anyone possibly adapt a story this grotesque for a modern audience? Well, back in 1985, the British novelist Barbara Comyns did exactly that, and the result is absolutely fascinating. Let's see how she pulled it off. Critics often describe Comyns' style as unsentimental magic realism. Basically, it's a style where horrifying or supernatural things are presented in a very matter-of-fact way. The horror is still there, for sure, but it's treated as just another awful thing you have to deal with in life. Like a flat tire or a terrible landlord. It's awful, but it's just part of the business of living. Now, the most crucial change she makes is to the villain. The Grimm stepmother is just pure, one-dimensional evil, right? But in Comyns' novel, the character who fills that role, Bella Winter, is actually our protagonist. She's a young, struggling single mother with a facial scar who is just trying to get by. She is complex, she's sympathetic, she's deeply human, the absolute opposite of a fairy tale archetype. And that shift is everything. But before we get to how Comyns wraps up her story, let's jump back to the original tale to see how the Brothers Grimm delivered their brand of justice. And trust me, it's every bit as intense as the crime itself. So the loyal sister, Marlene, she gathers up all her brother's little bones from under the dinner table, wraps them in a silk scarf, and places them beneath the juniper tree. And then the tree comes alive. A mist rises, and out of a fire emerges this beautiful bird, the reincarnation of the murdered boy, who is now ready to sing his song and tell the truth. The bird flies all through the town, singing that haunting song over and over. My mother, she killed me. My father, he ate me. And at each stop, he trades his beautiful song for a gift. He gets a golden chain for the father, a pair of red shoes for the sister, and, crucially, a heavy millstone from the millers. These aren't just random items, they're the tools of his judgment. So the bird returns home and starts handing out the gifts. The father gets the chain, the sister gets the shoes. But when the terrified stepmother runs outside, the bird drops the millstone. Justice is absolute, it's brutal, and it is final. She's crushed to death, and from the smoke and flames, the little brother reappears, whole and alive again. Now, Comyns' modern retelling, it just completely rejects this kind of violent revenge. As the Los Angeles Review of Books puts it, in her novel, the act of telling the story, of narrating the trauma, that is the goal. It doesn't offer you some magical revenge or a neat resolution. It offers something way more fragile and maybe more real, just a chance to make sense of things. So why do we keep coming back to these brutal ancient stories? And what does a modern adaptation like this one tell us about their real power? The review points to this great quality that links Comyns' heroine to those classic fairy tale characters: improbable pragmatism. Think about it. Characters in these old stories don't waste time asking why me when faced with wickedness or magic. They just deal with it. They endure. And Bella Winter, facing very real-world struggles, she has that same practical resilience. She just gets on with it, which is its own kind of quiet heroism. And that's really why the adaptation feels so different. The Grimm tale is all about big archetypes, good versus evil. But Comyns' novel, it's really interested in the inner lives of women. She gives this incredible depth to characters who would otherwise just be symbols, and she explores their quiet, everyday struggles. She finds the sad but not tragic in life and really gives a voice to these persevering innocents. Ultimately, what Comyns does is pretty remarkable. She blends the magical and the mundane so seamlessly that they just become the same thing. In her world, a strange encounter might be an omen, or it could just be a weird Tuesday. By making the supernatural feel ordinary, she suggests that our own world is filled with this kind of hidden enchantment, where anything might be a charm or a curse. And that leaves us with a final, fascinating question to chew on. The juniper tree, in both its ancient form and its modern one, uses fantasy to explore the deepest human horrors and the incredible resilience it takes to survive them. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What truths out there are so dark, or maybe just so strange, that we need the frame of a fairy tale just to be able to look at them straight on?